I'm Steve Morgan, founder of Cybersecurity Ventures and editor-in-chief at Cybercrime magazine. I'm here today with Joanna Huisman, SVP Strategic Insights and Research at KnowBe4, the world's first and largest new school security awareness training and simulated phishing platform that helps you manage the ongoing problem of social engineering. To learn more about our sponsor, KnowBe4, visit knowbe4.com. Joanna, welcome. Great to have you back on with us.
Thank you. It's certainly nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
So we had a chat last year. You gave us some great insights into phishing and broke it down for us by industry. I'm sure it was a lot of work for you to produce this report again this year with your colleagues. This is the Phishing By Industry Benchmarking Report 2023 edition. Being one of the authors, we wanted you to come on with us and help us understand this massive data set that you analyzed and conclusions that you walked away with. Maybe just give us top level, what is the purpose of this report for anyone who didn't see it last year?
Sure. So every organization wants to understand how they measure against other organizations across their industry. The struggle to answer that big question, how do I compare? It's very real for these organizations. So this kind of comparison requires a lot of data. An organization like ours at KnowBe4, we have the most customers in this industry, and therefore we're able to take that robust data, couple it with a scientific and proven method in order to show the valid results that our customers are looking for. To provide this kind of nuanced and accurate answer, the 2023 Phishing by Industry Benchmark study, it not only analyzes this massive data set, but it also provides insight into the data, which is important.
So, Joanna, the report kicks off with a statistic from Verizon's DBIR. For anyone who's not familiar, the Data Breach Investigations Report, one of the most credible sources in our industry. They say 74% of all breaches include the human element. Is this the essence of the problem we're faced with, Joanna?
Yeah, so as the human layer continues to be that most enticing attack vector for cyber criminals, the criminals are showing their willingness to search for any weakness. They're targeting employees both in their professional, personal settings. No one is safe, right? They're targeting your kids, they're targeting your elderly parents, and so forth. And they're looking for the uneducated, the distracted, and the lazy, right? And sadly, most organizations, they're continuing to focus on technology-based security layers, and they're ignoring the human layer. Or if they're not outright ignoring the human layer, they're not doing enough. Additionally, most humans remain vulnerable because they're not taking the precautions in their personal life to become less compromised, right? And so they're not taking their knowledge back. And everything we teach in security awareness is 100% transferable to their personal lives. To best defend their organizations from a cyber attack, employees, they have to have the knowledge. They have to adapt their habits. They have to have the necessary behaviors to drive what we're calling a security-ready culture. And, training needs to be that guiding transformation. It needs to be consistent and it needs to be comprehensive. It can't be event-based.
So, Joanna, a lot of the data in the report ties to KnowBe4's Phish-prone percentage. So explain that for us because we're definitely going to be mentioning it.
Sure, the PPP, right? So an organization's PPP indicates how many of their employees are likely to fall for social engineering or phishing scams. These are the employees who might be tricked into clicking on a link, opening a file infected with malware. They could be prompted to transfer funds through a criminal's bank account. So the higher your PPP is, it indicates a greater risk. And it points to a higher number of employees who typically fall for these scams. A lower PPP is optimal, right? So it indicates that the staff is security savvy, security ready. They understand how to recognize and shut down these attempts. So they can detect, respond, they can report, and so forth. And so if I'm a cyber criminal, I'm going to cast this really wide net. And if my company has a high PPP, I'm most likely going to get, a lot of the employees and audience in this net to become potentially compromised.
So the report does a lot of slicing and dicing, given your background coming from Gartner. I mean, you've got a vast research background. Not a lot of vendors have people like that. And that's why we asked you to come on, because as far as I'm concerned, this is real research. This is not a, quote, vendor report. So the first thing, I looked at were small businesses, mid-sized companies, large enterprises. Give us, some view into that. Are some companies doing better than others because they're categorized that way, maybe have more resources? I would personally think, oh, wow, the large enterprises are probably doing a great job because they've got CISOs and security teams.
Not the case, right? So what we're finding is, regardless of the company size, the overall baseline PPP across all industries and all organizations is 33.2%. So that's up a point from last year. That's not good. So we see trends continue to fluctuate and vary across different industries. So our research shows that untrained users continue to be the most significant flaw in an organization's cyber defense layer. So humans without this proper knowledge and training and testing really leave organizations crippled and exposed. So what we're seeing is that the larger companies, frankly, they're struggling more, right? So this could be because of the large, diverse, globally dispersed workforce. Also, it tends to be more challenging to drive a more security-aware culture in those larger organizations that have really significant cultural and demographic differences. So the larger the organization, what we're finding, the higher the susceptibility, the higher the PPP, and the more vulnerable they are.
So the report covers 19 industries, I believe. I went right to banking and finance. That's where the money is. So that was the first thing I wanted, to take a look at. Where did that show up on the radar screen compared to other industries?
Yeah, you would think, right? You would think that those numbers would be on the higher end, right? But banking and financial services, they're two industries that are highly regulated and have been for a long time. They also have had the longest runway to train and ready their employees to do that detection, reporting, defend of their entire digital environment. But it doesn't mean that they're among the forgotten, right? So as cyber criminals continue to get more sophisticated in their approaches, they're finding ways back into these industries, and it's primarily through the human layer. Now, you will see an adjacent financial services like insurance. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that in a minute. I mean, they're at the top of the list.
Well, tell us about the top of the list. So insurance, who else and why?
Yeah, so I'm seeing healthcare and pharmaceuticals, energy and utilities, and insurance. Let me dive a little bit deeper. So the healthcare and pharmaceutical industry has the highest risk for small and medium-sized organizations. So they're the top in the top three. It's the second year in a row they're highlighted both in small and medium. You got to see, the data that's held by healthcare and pharmaceutical companies is extremely valuable. Hackers sell this private patient information. It includes financial information, address history, social security numbers, and it's used by criminals primarily to create and commit identity theft, but also for other means. So healthcare and pharmaceuticals, top of the list. Energy and utilities, it holds the second spot in medium and large organizations, moving from the third spot in both last year. So they're kind of a repeat offender as well. There's an increased number of threats targeting utilities, nation-state actors seeking to cause security and economic dislocation, cyber criminals who understand the economic value represented by the sector, and just, hackers who are out to maybe publicly claim their opposition to some kind of project in the utility area or even maybe broader. Also, energy and utility companies have expansive attack surfaces, right? And they're rising from the geographical and organizational complexity of their organization. When we look at within energy and utilities, electric power and the gas sectors, there's this unique interdependence between physical and cyber infrastructure that make companies really vulnerable. And frankly, it makes cyber criminals really excited that they can take down complete systems and really render towns, states, countries helpless. And then we can't leave out what I call the centerpiece, which is insurance, which came in over 50%. So insurance is holding that top spot. In the large category, it's the second year running for this. And it's just, we liken it to, same as healthcare and pharmaceuticals. It's just the sheer volume of personal and financial data that an insurance company possesses. It makes them a really attractive target. And again, highly regulated, but cyber criminals are finding their ways in. And as Verizon shares, most of the time it's through their human layer.
Listening to you, Joanna, this reminds me a lot of security ratings. And I know CISOs have some mixed feelings. I think deep down they understand how important that is. And you need to rate your company, you need to understand how secure you are. But not everybody wants to talk about it because you're shining the light on an industry or a company. And I'm imagining myself now as you're talking, being the CISO at a large insurance company. And on the one hand, please don't point at me and examine our company. On the other hand, I think it's an excellent exercise and I need to recognize, what the risk is. Do you get that comparison at all to security ratings?
Yeah, so what's the alternative? Being the part of a major breach that, affects you not only from a revenue perspective, but does brand damage and does overall damage to you doing business across the world. Those are your options, right? And so what we're finding is that light that's shining on these organizations that really aren't doing what they need to be doing the minimal, or treating security like something that's event-based. They're the ones that are really kind of rising to the surface, and we're seeing struggle.
So most reports that I read cover North America and Europe, and you do. But you also cover Africa, you cover South America, you cover Asia Pac. You're all over the world. So talk to us about, regionally, how do things break down? Are companies in certain parts of the world more at risk than others?
So we are seeing a similar, if not higher, PPP, Phish-prone percentage across the globe. So cybercrime, it's a global problem. The threats are more frequent. These cyber criminals, they don't rest. There's no vacation. No matter what region you're in, there's a serious investment in the human layer that needs to happen. And it's past that technology and the infrastructure. And we're seeing that as a commonality across the world. I will tell you that where we're finding the most challenges right now is in South America. So they're struggling the way that potentially North America struggled many years ago. There's not a lot of sophistication in their capabilities, and the focus is not on necessarily security. There's not a lot of information also coming out of our Asia market. So it's a little challenging to garner the information there. However, we're seeing them fare similar to what we're seeing across kind of that consolidated worldview, and then North America. And then, in Africa, it's the largest, youngest population that is coming onto handheld devices and digital spaces every day. So we're talking about people who effectively are not trained. So we're seeing some similarities across the globe. I would say Europe probably is the most, I don't want to call it advanced, but comparable to North America.
So yesterday we had Deneen DiFiore on with us. She's the Chief Information Security Officer at United Airlines. She's one of the best in the business. I've known her for a long time. She was previously CISO at GE Aviation, so that's probably one of the industries that you cover, and she confirmed a lot of what the report does. Phishing attacks just are relentless. They have not let up. We're decades into this fight, and our industry is throwing everything we can at it. And yet these large enterprises are still battling, on a daily basis. Yeah. So I think we all agree that security awareness training is critical. But you emphasize new school security awareness training. Yeah. So how is that different from just overall security awareness training? What is it that you're advocating for?
Sure. So we consider old school security awareness training as something that's static. It's a one-time event, generally without follow-up. My favorite is Security Awareness Month. We throw a ton of money and time and resources into 1 month a year, and then outside of maybe the compliance training or potentially a quarterly simulated phishing attack, there's not much going on. KnowBe4's new school security awareness training starts with a baseline test to show the actual PPP of your users. Then it steps through effective, interactive, on-demand, browser-based training. You also send frequent simulated phishing attacks to your employees to reinforce the training. And along with these frequent simulated phishing attacks, what we're finding, and I'll go back to the frequency of that, is that we're finding that it's really creating this change of behavior and driving a culture where not only people understand the way they need to behave, but they're also taking on more responsibility, not only within their organization, but also in their personal lives, right? And I remember talking to clients when I was at Gartner, and they would tell me, we're doing this annual training, and then we're doing, quarterly phishing testing. And my response was often, it's a big waste of your time, and, were they confusing security awareness training with, compliance training? And we're talking about increasing the frequency and decreasing the time people spend in training. So if you're looking at training people a couple hours over the course of the year, look at that in monthly increments. And then look at your departments based on topics and see how they will digest certain pieces of content. KnowBe4, we have a vast content library. And so if you're going to train somebody on passwords, you can look at your IT department and say, they consume information better through a video. Or you can look at, your HR department and they like to consume information, games, same content, only consumed through different versions, different styles, right? And when you are at a cadence that is regular, people expect it, people see it, it's top of mind, they're getting practice, they're increasing their ability to be instinctive around it, right? And that's how you change behavior long term.
Well, I'm definitely a visual reader, and I really appreciate all of the visuals that went into the report. You could really go through that, maybe do a first 10-minute read through and look at the graphs and consume that information, understand what it is maybe. And then I went back and I did a much deeper dive. When I got towards the end of the report, there was one graphic that really grabbed me, and it said, "Plan like a marketer." And that was really interesting. I don't know if you had a hand in that or who that came from, but maybe you could tell us a little bit about that graphic and what it means. Plan like a marketer, test like an attacker.
Yes, and that is my colleague and our just Perry Carpenter.
Okay.
I mean, he is just a treasure in this industry, and he is the one who kind of came up with this treat your program like a marketing campaign. And in order to strengthen security, you've got to focus on changing behavior rather than just telling the staff where you want them to go and what you want them to do, right? Giving them critical information they need, but staying focused on conditioning their reflexes so that your workforce not only is the first line of defense, but it is, your last line of defense, right? The one before the hackers get in. So by making your program relevant, using real world attack methods, really engaging and enrolling others, being focused on just a few things, you can engage your audience very differently and way more effectively than you can by just treating it like a program.
So before you go, Joanna, we really appreciate all of those insights. Where can people go to download the report?
Yeah, right to knowbe4.com. And this year as well, what we've done is our online version is interactive. And so if you don't want to read through all the regional stuff, you don't have to. If you just want to read through North America, you can go right there. If you just want to see the, executive key takeaways, right there you can go. So it's a lot more user friendly. But I would say, definitely download it, take a look, compare where you are, your baseline versus the rest of your industry. And then if you have a program, that is, more advanced, like we're looking at companies here at the baseline, we're looking at them. What happens if you do really kind of rich and focused, comprehensive, continuous training for 90 days? What happens if you do it for a year? What happens to that PPP? And the results are significant. We go from insurance being at 51% on the highest at the largest organizations down to low single digits by applying 12 months of security awareness training and driving that more security-aware culture.
Joanna, thank you so much for joining us. Phishing by Industry Benchmarking Report 2023 edition. Go to KnowBe4.com, download it. You'll benefit from it. Hope to have you back on with us soon, Joanna.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
I'm Steve Morgan, founder of Cybersecurity Ventures and editor-in-chief at Cybercrime magazine. Joining us today was Joanna Huisman, SVP Strategic Insights and Research at KnowBe4, the world's first and largest new school security awareness and simulated phishing platform that helps you manage the ongoing problem of social engineering. To learn more about our sponsor KnowBe4, visit KnowBe4.com. You can keep up with all of our media at cybercrimemagazine.com.